Hey there, how's it going? I know that I'm super late on this, but honestly, I really can't give a full run through The Walking Dead. I can only kind of give my impressions of what I thought about this episode this week, or at the very least, some of the bigger parts in this episode, or honestly, the parts which honestly kind of touched me and made me think a little bit more about this episode, which mostly was the honestly entire thing behind the whole Beth and, well, now this episode being the only one which did honestly kind of only have like two main characters in it, of Daryl and Beth. The entire thing of Beth honestly trying to, which that honestly it was a thing for me to kind of, at the very least, I kind of have to assess this first. It was a thing of Beth honestly doing what she normally does, which is sing and trying to be the comforting soul which that she is, to try and ease the mood and make and possibly make everybody feel better. And Daryl honestly snapping at her about that, and actually, her snapping back, basically saying like that, or at least like him asking like, why is it that you are singing at a time like this, which actually there really is nothing to really sing about, which honestly, as I just said before, it is a thing in which that she does to try and like ease everybody up, because and honestly, she does fight for that and pretty much say like, yeah, man, this is what I do. It's my thing, I do it to help everybody, and stuff like that. Which that it is kind of to kind of see where that is, to kind of see the context of, where their friendship is, and how close they are kind of becoming, because honestly in their minds now they are, or just like everybody else's group at this point, they do kind of believe that they are the only ones who made it out. So honestly that is a thing, and this is honestly kind of a thing which that they do kind of show these two characters actually growing closer, aside from them just being like two people who actually trusted each other enough to kind of live with. So there is always that. Then honestly cutting into him kind of protecting her, which I'm planning on making this super short if you kind of haven't guessed it, but honestly, for the thing of, well, now I can comment a lot about everything else that happened. However, I'm not really trying to make this into a recap this week, because I kind of missed my chance of that because, reasons and stuff. However, I will say this though. For the ending of this episode, with the whole thing between Beth and Daryl, and honestly kind of figuring out kind of what they were before all this happened. It was a thing of Daryl was just, or at least like this is kind of the biggest shocker, which that kind of has been going around for a good while now, is the fact that Daryl was just a guy who just was just like an average guy, a guy, I believe like in his 20s, Daryl is possibly in his 20s, and pretty much he was just a guy who was just, doing what most people do in their early 20s. You just live your life, and most likely you really don't have a purpose. You kind of just follow, your brother around, you have fun, all this other stuff. He, even honestly, the whole story about how when Merle was talking about this kid show and then turned into an altercation with the guy who, whose kid overheard him talking about it, and he threatened to like kill them over a stupid TV show. So there was that. And then it proceeds to go into Beth honestly saying that she misses her brother, she misses her family, which actually it does kind of play a part into how her persona has been for a good while. And honestly, we do kind of see that as well, with the whole thing of like us seeing that manifest at the end of her basically saying like, you know what, man, I'm just being a person or whatever. And the whole symbolism for this entire episode of it just being saying like, yeah, gotta get that first drink, which, it is honestly kind of better because, it kind of, I do kind of believe that it goes past the metaphor of saying like, yeah, man, you're of the age, you have to drink. I do kind of believe that now in this world it's mostly just like, you kind of been through something, you kind of use it as like, man, the average thing of just saying like, hey, it's something in which that I gotta try because, you know, you never know what's gonna happen the next day. You know, one day you're here and the next day you're not. So there's always that. And they do tend to kind of have the worst conversation, or at least like Beth, she does kind of say the worst thing to Daryl ever, in which that he is powerful. Or at least like she believes that he is a powerful person and that he's meant for this world, and it makes him stronger. She is tied down to the actual world, or at least like for how we live in the day, and necessarily she doesn't feel strength from this world. It actually fears her, and that does precede her to say that he's going to outlive everybody and that he's going to miss them all. He's going to grow old and most likely he's going to be alone, to a guy who does honestly have abandonment issues. And really, honestly, the reason why he acts the way he acts is because secretly he is actually a hurting guy. And most likely, you know, he's a very wounded dude, and most likely he is trying to like be tough around his brand new family and friends. So there's always that. It does tend to proceed with them burning the cabin, of them kind of saying, yeah, man, my old life is gone, you know, and basically I'm starting all over again with Beth, and possibly, you know, with all this other stuff, you know, all the stuff that was bad in my past is gone, and now I'm basically just an average person. And that is honestly what does carry into this episode. And most likely, even though it did honestly kind of like have a fun thing of them talking about like all the cool stuff which did actually happen in between all the chapters, I mean like showing all their interactions and kind of having them blow up at one another, and them taking out all of the zombies, and, you know, going through all this stuff. At the end, it does tend to kind of just solidify it all. And these are kind of some of the only characters, or at the very least, I do kind of believe, in which that we did kind of have like a sit down moment with, and actually talk about their past and everything, and talk about kind of like how everything has affected them up until this point. Now, mind you, I'm not asking that they do this for every character. However, I do appreciate it when they do things like it. So I'm not asking for everybody. However, when I do kind of find it in the however, when I do find them doing it within the episodes, I do kind of appreciate it, and it is a good thing, man, to kind of just sit down and just learn and learn some of these character stories about before all these all this craziness happened. So there's always that. I'll catch you guys next time. This episode was actually really, really good, and next week I do believe that we are back with Maggie. God dang it. With Maggie and everybody else. So that's kind of what we have looking forward to next week. I'll catch you guys next time. Sorry for rambling on for 8 minutes. I tried to make it short, but looks like I failed on that part. Thanks for watching.